Good afternoon. Am I audible? Good afternoon. I hope it's not the lunch that's making you guys sound sleepy. But I'm hoping that this session will wake you up a bit. It's going to be interactive. There's going to be some interesting presentations from a couple of our postdocs. So I hope you guys will engage with the content that will be shared. My name is Refilo Mashejo from the National Research Foundation. I will be co-facilitating this session with my favorite colleague from the HSRC, Dr. Konoswang Sobane, or Dr. Koni. And yeah, we just look forward to engaging with you. Please do ask questions where necessary. So before I get into the session, I have a purse here that was misplaced. If someone is missing their purse, it's black. And yeah, if you misplaced your purse, please just let me know, and I will hand it over to you. But you'll have to describe what's inside the purse, so that we know that you're the real owner of the purse. Okay, so yeah, so this session is primarily about research for policy. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are about the DSTI NRF Policy Placement Fellowship Program, which was launched in 2024. We have some postdocs who are part of the program, and what they've been doing is basically being exposed to policy processes, ensuring that we take researchers out of the lab and into policy-making spaces. And it's not just the lab. Of course, we have humanities sciences as well, contributing towards this body of knowledge around policy briefs and policy making. So this session is primarily to just see how researchers have engaged in policy-making processes through this fellowship program. And we've been working very closely with the HSRC in terms of equipping the researchers on tools to communicate their policy briefs, tools to communicate their research to policy makers and so forth, and other audiences. So I won't get into the details of the program. There's Michael who will speak on behalf of the NRF and just share a broader overview of the program. But for now, I'll hand over to Koni to take it forward. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. I want to introduce myself again just to say that I'm a policy brief coordinator at the HSRC. Some of the work that I do in that portfolio is to guide people on how to write policy briefs, to train them, to mentor them, and to also help them publish HSRC policy briefs at the moment. So if you're interested in the work that we do, you just go to the HSRC website and look at some of the policy briefs that we have done before. And in the morning, Dr. Pauline and her team talked a lot about being a policy-engaged researcher. And the biggest question is, you have now mapped the policymakers, you now know who they are, they have given you money to do research. How are you going to get this research to them? Are you going to submit to them a 500-page report? Are they going to read it? Are they interested even to read that report? Now, this is where we then teach scholars how to discern the policy implications and the policy messages and the policy relevance of the research through the use of policy briefs. And for those of you that are at the HSRC, I just want to repeat this because I hope you have heard properly. You have to be a policy-engaged scholar yourself, as a scholar. So if I have helped you with a policy brief, it's a tool that you are supposed to use in order to do further engagements with policymakers, you, the scholar. And that is what I'm also saying to our postdocs. So I'm going to hand over, just to give us a brief overview of what policy briefs are according to our perspectives. I'm going to hand over to one of our emerging scholars, Yoliswa Skosana. She will go through what policy briefs are in our understanding.
Tony, could you please put up our presentation? Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Yoliswa Kwasana, and I come from the HSRC. I've met a lot of you postdocs. We've had the opportunity to engage and speak over the period of this policy brief program, and it's been a pleasure. I just want to come in here and talk about something that affects all of us, which is policy briefs and their role in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Because as the HSRC, the NRF, as well as the CSR and all the other entities of the DSTI, we are governed by these policies, Agendas 63, Agenda 2030, and the SGD goals. And when we do research, we must make sure that our research and our policy briefs align with these policies and going forward. So we often hear about major challenges within the education space and the healthcare space and technology and innovation space as well. And it's important for us to ask ourselves as policy actors and policymakers, how do we then solve these problems? That's where these policy briefs and this program comes in. Policy briefs help us bridge the gap between research and real-world decision-making. Today, I'll give a quick overview of how policy briefs align with the SDGs and why they matter in shaping a more sustainable and equitable future ahead of the postdocs' presentations. Can we just please go to the next slide, Tony? What? Oh, got it. Thank you. Let's see. I'm just going to go skip ahead. Let's see. All right. Now I want us to just take a quick step back and see why policy briefs matter. What happens in a world where we don't have policy briefs? Well, decision makers are going to be left doing a lot of guesswork. Policies would be created without strong evidence, leading to slow or ineffective progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. Imagine policies on education that don't align with what the labor market needs, and healthcare systems that are struggling due to poor planning because the policy briefs don't exist, or those that do exist don't align with what is needed in that space in that moment. Or even imagine governments being unable to push forward policies that put forward economic growth as one of the Sustainable Development Goals. This isn't just a minor inconvenience, it's a big problem that could affect millions of people, especially the most vulnerable people in our communities. Graduates struggle to find jobs, and that's related to our Sustainable Development Goal number 8, which is decent work and economic growth. And we would then also be facing issues where we would have patients that are misdiagnosed due to policies that don't align with what is happening. So that's just some of the themes that we'll be speaking about. We'll be looking at decent work and economic growth, looking at a good healthcare and well-being, and also be looking at industry innovation and infrastructure. So policy briefs do help fix this. We provide decision makers with concise research-based recommendations that lead to better policies and ultimately better lives for the most vulnerable people in our communities. So I'm just going to go on and speak about, we're going to be highlighting 3 themes in today's policy briefs by our postdocs. And the first theme is about the challenges in the higher education space. And we'll have Dr. Moloko and Dr. Lucia who will be speaking about those themes. So let's talk about higher education and the challenges that are faced within that higher education space. You know, one of the challenges is the unequal access to funding and research resources. Historically disadvantaged institutions, they often struggle to compete with well-funded universities, and they also often struggle with attracting the best talent. Another major issue is graduate unemployment. Many students finish their degrees only to realize that their skills, they don't match what employers need. So this mismatch between education and the labor market then fuels high unemployment rates, even amongst the most highly educated people. So what is the solution? We need stronger policies that connect universities and industries. If we can align what's taught in classrooms with real-world job demands, we can then improve our employment outcomes and economic growth, which is directly supporting Sustainable Development Goal number 4 and Sustainable Goal number 8. Moving on to our next theme of health and well-being. So what is health and well-being? One major issue is that we're faced with people that are misdiagnosed with tuberculosis. That's one of the policy briefs that are going to be presented by one of our postdocs. And many patients in South Africa, they receive incorrect treatment because of TB symptoms that overlap with other infections. So it's important for us to be able to have policies that are able to remedy that gap. This happens because we will, pardon me, sorry, the nerves are kicking in, eh? Hey, the crowd is looking at me like crazy, but here we go. Thanks for the courtesy chuckle. There's the issue of the social relief program, which one of our postdocs will also be delivering a policy brief on. Unokbonga Makanya will be speaking to that, and that also is in relation to that theme number 2 of health and well-being. So there's this issue of social relief programs. The COVID-19 special grant of 350 Rand was meant to help struggling citizens, but bureaucratic inefficiencies led to delays and people falling through the cracks. If policy briefs had played a stronger role in the planning process, we could have a more efficient and accessible system that directly supports the Sustainable Development Goal number 1 of no poverty. Moving on to the last theme of technology and innovation, I want us to talk about what technology and innovation is. One exciting development is we have the zinc-ion battery technology policy brief that one of the postdocs is going to be speaking about. And this postdoctoral fellow is going to be speaking about how it's important for us to be able to use renewable energy and be able to use zinc-ion battery technology as a way to bridge the gap between renewable energy and our current energy sources that we're utilizing at the moment. So with this postdoctoral fellow's policy brief, he'll be talking about helping us all move forward towards cleaner and more reliable energy sources, which is a critical sustainable development goal, and that is specifically sustainable goal number 7, which is about affordable and clean energy. And another place where we can then speak about this theme number 3 of technology and innovation is the space sector. Another policy brief that we're expecting our postdocs to deliver is one related to the space sector. And our postdoc will be speaking about a dedicated online portal that could centralize information and attract investment and drive collaboration. This could then position South Africa as a leader in space technology, driving innovation and industrial growth in line with Sustainable Development Goal number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. The takeaway here is simple, is that technology is advancing rapidly, and it's important for us to move with the times, and our policies must speak to that advancement. So in closing, I just want to give a key message here, is that the takeaway here is that policy briefs, they matter. They take complex research and they turn it into practical, actionable recommendations for decision makers. If we want to achieve Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2063, and the NDP's Agenda 2030, we need to make sure that evidence-based policymaking is at the center of our discussion, as some of our colleagues from PRASCA spoke about earlier. Whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, or whether it's technology and innovation, collaboration between researchers and policymakers and industries as well is very important. So important for us that by working together and putting research into action, we can move real world issues and come up with sustainable and innovative solutions through the work that we do with our policy briefs. I'd like to now hand over to the next speaker. Kitumetse is going to be chairing. But before we let Kitumetse come speak to us, we'll let Refilwe come through, have a word with you, and then Kitu will then lead us into the session with our postdoctoral fellows. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you. Oh, no, this is you.
Thank you so much, Yoli, for that brief overview. I would like for us to just get a little bit more detail about the policy work that we've been doing at the NRF. And for that, I'm going to call Michael Nxumalo from the NRF. He'll be standing in for Dr. Seppo Hajigonta, who had to attend to another meeting. And if you see on the program, you'll see that DSTI was also supposed to speak, but unfortunately, due to last-minute meetings they had to attend to as well, they could not join us as well. So Michael, thank you.
Thanks, Refilwe. Yeah, my colleague Seppo is not here, so I'll be able to read, because that was not my slot at the beginning. So yeah, I'm here to say a little bit about the purpose of the postdoctoral fellowship program, policy program, and how we intend, what were our original intentions. And Refilwe later, when she makes announcements about the new phase, she'll be able to talk to you about some of the changes that we're bringing in. So the DSTI NRF Policy Fellowship Program that was conceptualized in 2023 and launched in May 2024. This initiative is a vital bridge between research and public policy making, designed to address the pressing societal challenges of today. The role of research in shaping effective public policy is critical. For sure you can agree with me after a half day engaging on that topic. But the NRF and the DSTI recognizes the imperative and is committed to fostering an environment where academic expertise can significantly contribute to national development and improve the quality of life for all South Africans. The DSTI NRF Policy Fellowship Program therefore aims, or was initially aimed, and I think it still stands, at creating a unique platform for postdoctoral research fellows and emerging researchers. This program places talented individuals within key government departments and institutions, allowing them to engage directly with policymakers, share their research insights, and help craft solutions that are both innovative and impactful. And you'll hear from, and I implore you to engage with the policy briefs that are here. Do ask them questions on how they were interacting with policymakers, because I think some of those details will be useful, especially for those who are interested in the program to understand. So the focus is clear. The program seeks to drive social innovation. By collaborating with host institutions, fellows apply their academic expertise into the policy-making process. So they are hosted in an institution which it's practically doing some of the work, and then they're able to share those skills. The thematic areas outlined in the Science, Technology, and Innovation Decadal Plan serve as the guide. We're getting funding from the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, so it's important that we align with the policies that are contained in the strategic document. So this program is about cultivating a new generation of scholars who are equipped to tackle public policy challenges. The NRF offers, and for those who are new, don't understand how the program works, you probably want to know that, as a policy fellow, what do you get? So the NRF offers stipends, professional development opportunities, and support for travel in order to empower fellows to gain invaluable experience and build networks within the public sector. And you'll also hear that we're trying to strengthen the program by internationalizing, and Refilo will speak a little bit about that. The expectation is that the fellows will contribute meaningfully to the national development agenda, producing outputs that resonate with both academic and policy-making communities. And today is such a day where we're hearing such stories. The initial pilot that began, I need to say, fellows are expected to produce strong research outputs, enhance research capacity within government, and ultimately contribute to the formulation of evidence-based policies that drive meaningful change. As I end, I want to say some of the few highlights of the program. They include that the pilot phase appointed 23 postdoctoral fellows assigned to strategic divisions within government departments, and science councils. So they were some of them were placed in the technology, innovation, and research development and support divisions. The policy focus areas that were supported in the first phase were human capital development and social grant challenges, research impact, internationalization and partnerships. A number of them were part of the business advancement programs, technology and innovation, and open science. So I'm looking forward to the presentations, to the engagement. Let's see what your work is culminating into after a year of hard work. All the best with the session. Thank you so much, Refilo.
Thank you so much, Michael, for that overview. I hope there are postdocs in the house that are interested in this program, because we really do look forward to engaging with you on this program and placing additional postdocs across other government departments and entities. But I'll speak to that a bit later in the session. So for now, I would like to call up my colleague, Ms. Kitumetsi Sipeng, who is a pillar in this program and has done great things in terms of supporting this program. So she'll be sharing a brief introduction of the postdocs before they come up to present. Thanks, Kitu.
Thank you, Fifi. Welcome everybody to our policy brief portfolio session. I'd like to introduce the first postdoc that will be presenting, Dr. Moloko Matipa Mdakane. Moloko is an information scientist at the CSIR and a policy fellow within strategic investments, innovation and impact at the NRF. She plays a vital role in developing strategic documents for multiple departments within the NRF. She is currently the lead researcher for education, STEM and digital divide task team under W20, one of the official G20 engagement groups. With expertise in policy advocacy, program evaluation, and research impact analysis, she actively contributes to stakeholders across academia, government, and industry. Moloko is passionate about capacity building, particularly in supporting emerging researchers in STEM fields. She's dedicated to helping them navigate critical career transitions and unlock new opportunities. Her current research focuses on developing and implementing policies that take a long-term approach to supporting clear career pathways. Good luck.
Oh, sorry, technology. Thank you so much, Kitumeti. Thank you to Refilwe, Dr. Corny, Michael, for introducing the program as a whole. As Kitumeti has already said, my name is Moloko Matipa Mtagani. As we already know, the university landscape in South Africa is composed of traditional universities, University of Technologies, and also your historically disadvantaged universities, which I'll be referring to as your HDIs for the remainder of this presentation. Each of these have their own strengths and their weaknesses. While traditional universities continue to benefit from their well-established research infrastructure and funding, we have HDIs that continue to suffer the strategic and systemic barriers that have already been there and are still there. So the aim of this policy brief was just to look at how we can use policy interventions to make sure that we enhance the research capabilities of these historically disadvantaged institutions. If there's something that we cannot shy away from, is the fact that HDIs suffer from systematic and systematic barriers that are there. However, when we look at barriers and challenges when it comes to these HDIs, we look at the impact of what these challenges have. And obviously the impact of this would go to your researchers and your current academics in the institutions, which have limited career progressions and funding opportunities. We also look at the postgraduate students that are already in these HDIs because there's limited research mentorship, and thus there's restricted funding, which actually limits them to compete with other postgraduate students. But then also at the same time, the DHET has a problem because you're sitting with institutions that are supposed to be performing and meeting a certain standards, but they're not. Sorry, I keep going back. In addition to this, we've already spoken about the funding opportunities that are there and the funding challenges that we see. Yeah, so as we've already touched on that, there is disparities and discrepancies when it comes to the funding that these HDIs are getting. And also in addition to that, research has shown that when you look at international collaborations between your traditional universities and your HDIs, you can see that your traditional universities are sitting at 25% international collaborations when you compare them to the 5% that is your HDI. In addition to that, we have funding bodies such as the NRF that are funding HDIs at 10% when we compare them to the 60% that the traditional universities are getting. And that's not all. In one of the reports that the NRF published, they've reported that they've funded only 15% of international partnerships when you look at your HDIs. Honestly, we know that we have a problem. Taking away from that, we cannot deny that there's policies that are there that are supposed to be supporting these HDIs, but are we really doing our most when it comes to this? We've got a whole lot of policies, inclusive of your decadal plan, that actually was very specific that we need to make sure that HDIs benefit equally when you compare them to your traditional universities. You have frameworks that are sitting with your funding bodies, such as targeted funding, such as your SACHI and your COEs. However, traditional universities are still benefiting very much from these. You have your NRF Vision 2030, your Africa AU Agenda 2063, that are there, that are speaking specifically to these very same problems that we're looking at. You also have DHET that has a specific program, your professors, Busiso Bengu, that literally is there to benefit the HDIs, but we still have the same problems that we're facing when it comes to these HDIs. So we can't shy away from the fact that there's gaps that are there that actually require us to act urgently in order for us to make sure that we close the gap between HDIs and your traditional universities. So having gaps creates opportunities for us to deal with these problems. We've already said the policies are there. Are we implementing them correctly? This is something that we really need to look at. When we have policies that are sitting in place but are not doing the most, you can amend policies. You can enhance policies. You can revise policies in order to make sure that at the end of the day, you really get the support that the HDIs get and we're able to close the gap when it comes to research excellence. I've already said there's a whole lot of stakeholders that are affected by these policies that would benefit from this amending and revising and enhancement of these policies. So we need to look at it with the whole different stakeholders that are there to make sure that in closing the gap, really look at the different spheres of research in order for us to do that. We can't do this alone. If we're going to call people to action, we need to make sure that when we advise on the policy making, we're speaking to the relevant person. I've spoken about funding bodies. You do have policies that are there. However, there's a need to make sure that we develop and implement targeted funding policies that will specifically look at strengthening the research excellence at these HDIs. You have the government that is there, government ministries, you have your DHET, your DSTI. We need to make sure that when we speak about higher education policies, we are speaking at a point where we're able to provide and close the gap that these HDIs are facing, whether it's infrastructure, it's funding, it's mentoring, it's leadership development. We need to make sure that we pull up and we develop all these policies that would speak to that. But then also at the end of the day, we have leadership at these HDIs that are going to need support in order to make sure that they're also able to close the gap. They're struggling with attracting and retaining researchers in these HDIs. What are we doing in order to make sure that we actually develop them and give them everything that they need in order for them to close this gap and ensure the research excellence at these HDIs? So together, the NRF and the HSRC, they've been very kind to develop videos and infographics for us to further disseminate these policy briefs. And I was very fortunate to get half my time dedicated to a video that is going to speak to HDIs and making sure that we enhance the research excellence in these HDIs. You can play the video there at the back.
Institutions, or HDIs, play a crucial role in education and research. However, they face persistent challenges, insufficient funding, limited infrastructure, and barriers to high-impact research opportunities. These constraints prevent HDIs from competing with well-established universities. Achieving true research excellence requires more than just funding. It demands mentorship, capacity-building programs, and structured career pathways. To make this a reality, key stakeholders must take action. Let's explore the key messages, the role of various institutions, and the necessary steps to drive meaningful change. First, we must acknowledge that HDIs need more than funding. They require mentorship, research capacity development, and structured career pathways. Access to research funding must be equitable, allowing HDIs to compete fairly. Leadership at HDIs should have greater access to decision-making, academic networks, and global research opportunities. A coordinated effort between government, funding bodies, and HDIs is essential for sustainable change. Addressing these challenges requires action from multiple stakeholders. The National Research Foundation, NRF, must implement targeted funding programs, mentorship initiatives, and policies that support HDI researchers. Government ministries, DHET, DSTI, should prioritize HDIs in research policies, ensuring sustainable financial and structural support. HDI leadership must establish internal programs to improve research productivity, strengthen faculty development, and enhance engagement with funding agencies. By working together, these stakeholders can create an environment where HDIs thrive. Several initiatives aim to support HDIs, including the NRF's South African Research Chairs Initiative, HDI Core, encouraging more research leadership at HDIs. The DHET's Professor Sibusiso Bengu Program, strengthening academic career pipelines. The DSTI's ring-fenced funding for research infrastructure and collaborations. However, simply redistributing existing opportunities isn't enough. A long-term strategy focused on institutional development is required. To ensure that HDIs become competitive research institutions, we need to 1. Develop a cross-cutting framework to strengthen institutional capacity and research infrastructure at HDIs. 2. Revision of current frameworks to prioritize HDIs through mandatory allocations, equitable evaluation criteria, and succession planning mechanisms. 3. Develop a national research leadership pipeline policy to create structured career progression pathways for emerging researchers at HDI. 4. Integrate research-intensive support into existing HDI development programs within the different ministries and institutions. 5. Develop a research collaboration policy to enhance international partnerships for HDIs and increase their participation in global research networks. These steps will ensure that HDIs not only survive, but thrive in South Africa's research landscape. The future of research excellence in South Africa depends on how we support HDIs today. By investing in mentorship, funding, and institutional development, we can create an equitable research environment that benefits both HDIs and the nation.
Thank you so much. Just in closing, I think what's important here is that we need to be aware that if we're going to win the struggle, we need a more strategic and targeted institutional development approach that is going to enable our HDIs to effectively compete with our traditional universities. Thank you.
Thank you, Moloko. I'd like to call upon Dr. Lucia Masilela, who will be joining us online. Dr. Lucia Masilela is a postdoctoral research fellow from the University of UJ. Her research in the field of public management, governance, and public policy concentrates on policy innovation and governance. The goal is to develop enhanced and integrated service delivery solutions and mechanisms for the public sector. Her recent research contributions are on informed policymaking practices with a focus on incorporating decision intelligence tools in order to improve the effectiveness and efficiency of decision-making process within the public sector. Her research within the postdoctoral fellowship program is centered around 2 sustainable development goals. Goal 9, to build resilient infrastructure, promote inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and foster innovation. And Goal 17, strengthening the means of implementation and revitalizing the global partnership for sustainable development. Her research examines lessons learned from existing policy interventions and aims to identify best practice guidelines for public policy. Thank you, Lucia. You're muted. Lucia, you can go ahead. We can see you now. We can't hear you though.
Can you?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
I'm not muted.
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see you.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody is well. Thank you so much, Dr. Mloko, for your presentation. And I'd like to thank the HSRC, the NRF, the DTSI, and the NRF for hosting this segment of policy briefs. It's quite an important phenomenon that's going to change a lot on how. Can I please have my slides, or are they up already?
they're not up, you can share them with us, please. Go ahead, Lucia, we can see your presentation now.
Is everything fine now?
Yes. We're good to go now.
All right, thank you so much, Gitu. As I was saying, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My policy brief will be titled or is on the structural and institutional barriers influencing postgraduate unemployment within South Africa, policy challenges and solutions. The policy problem and the context of this policy brief is that there's currently there's currently challenges regarding postgraduate unemployment with a particular segment or a subpopulation of honors, masters, and doctoral students who have dedicated their time, energy, and efforts to further extend their qualifications in the hopes to be more competitive and employable within the South African market. Preliminary research has indicated that there are currently institutional and structural barriers which are hindering the pathway to getting employment, even though there are graduates who have or hold an honors master's or a doctoral degree. This has become very problematic because it indicates that the country has a broader socioeconomic challenge, particularly with education and the level of education being provided, the labor market trends and dynamics, and most importantly, the economic transformation of the country. The policy that was analyzed and assessed within this policy brief is the National Development Plan 2030, which was identified as a key instrument policy towards dedicating resources, efforts, policies, and infrastructure towards increasing the number of postgraduate students and, most importantly, graduates at the end of their qualifications. The National Development Plan in 2010 had enrollment rates of 950,000, and then it indicated that it wanted to approximately increase this to 1.62 million people or graduates by 2032, which is an estimated 70% increase. One of the challenges that preliminary research indicated is that in the South African context, we are only producing 28 graduates per million per population per annum, which is relatively low towards international standards and requirements. So therefore, the NDP, in order to counteract this challenge and deficit, was that it set the targets for PhDs to increase to 100 by 2030, which would have then resulted to, if achieved, to 5,000 PhD graduates within the South African education sector. I identified two important elements that are challenges, and most importantly, that could be incorporated and developed and enhanced and even made into relevant policies, which is firstly the curriculum enhancement with practical work experience. Currently, traditional universities, particularly the ones that I've identified in social science and humanities, is that they do lack a work exposure, practical learning and component, where a number of the students who are registered for their honors, masters, and doctoral degrees do not get exposure to the relevant fields that they want to work in, other than those in academia, which is obviously to be a researcher or to be a lecturer, which isn't necessarily the route for everybody. The policy improvement that can be incorporated into the segment would be to incorporate work integrated learning components into postgraduate qualifications from an honors, masters, and doctoral level, in order to equip the graduates with the necessary exposure and skill sets that they would need in order for them to be applicable, most importantly, skilled, knowledgeable, and capable of transgressing from an academic environment into a practical work environment. The second would be strengthening university and industry partnerships and collaborations. There is currently inadequate partnerships and lines of communication between universities and industry, and that is a very big challenge, as this indicates that there's a disconnect between what is being taught, lectured, and researched on in universities and what is required by employers in their lines of work and what is required in terms of the economy. This disconnect may be a reason why we are currently having an issue with an overproduction of graduates, which is good because it indicates a constitutional right to access to education. However, in terms of the economy, we have a high number of graduates who do not have jobs as there is no market threshold to uptake them, which is very problematic because we have a stagnant amount of graduates who are ready and capable of working, but unfortunately there isn't capacity to take up all of them, and even those that can be uptaken do not have the necessary skills and knowledge base which will make them employable, because sometimes in most cases employees want people who have pre-exposure of knowledge and experience so that they are easier to set in tone in terms of when they are employed, which is also another problem. There was a study conducted by Ndebele and Ndlovu in 2024 on postgraduate students in KwaZulu-Natal, and it highlighted that there is currently a lack of work readiness amongst postgraduate students once they have completed their degree. And these are one of the many contributing factors towards unemployment, is because a number of the students, when they do enroll, they do not technically know what they want to do. And within universities, the programs are structured on a long-term basis that includes their models and all of that, which may not be necessarily applicable to what is currently happening within the market and trends and what may make them employable. The second study that was conducted was by Zhang and Shen in 2023, which indicated that in university collaborations with industry can assist postgraduate students to identify specific skill sets or segments in which they want to specialize in, which are also relevant to the current economy, but are also transitional into the future economy, particularly because now we have advanced and emerging technologies which are changing the scale and pace in which we work in, and mostly the available jobs that will not be there in the near. Was that there needs to be integrated policies between the Department of Labor, the Department of Higher Education and Learning, the National Skills Fund, the NRF, the DTSI, and a number of other government institutions in order for them to start aligning their work trends and policies and what is required on their goals and objectives with that of the university, so that there is that link between the two. Secondly, they need to be monitoring and evaluating frameworks to determine whether or not that the current institutional material that has been provided for by higher education institutions is relevant, transitional, and is emerging with technology and with the changing dynamics of the world. Because if there isn't an integration of these two, then we're just going to continue to produce graduates who do not have jobs. And what's worse is now is that if the Department of Labor cannot create mechanisms to create new jobs to fit in the next generation of jobs, then we're going to continue to have high unemployment rates, and we'll continue to have graduates that are skilled or not skilled, theoretically equipped, but are not practically equipped. And lastly, aligning education with market trends and needs. There needs to be a big role in triangulating the efforts, research strategies with industry, government, and academia, because the disconnect between the three is a big challenge, which I believe can be counteracted with the necessary collaborations, partnerships, research, and investments between the three. My intended dissemination plan includes of 4 target audiences, which is 1, the government officials from DHET, DOL, NRF, NSF, NR, and DTSI, academic institutions, which would include all of those within South Africa, 3, industry leaders and employers from research and consulting firms such as Deloitte, Ernst & Young, McKinsey & Co., as they do have very interesting research and insights. And lastly, the most affected people, which are your postgraduate students and your alumni. My dissemination channels, I would preferably prefer workshops and seminars. Reason being is that not everything can be necessarily be taught within a book. We need very informative, practical, implementable, and very realistic goals and approaches and strategies on how we will intend to address postgraduate unemployment within South Africa. And particularly, we need to have collaborations. As much as the different components may feel that the students or graduates that have the best academic grades and they are part of the Golden Key International Society. They are the ones that are deserving, but we generally do have a broader socioeconomic challenge and problem that we need to address through collaborations with industry, government, and academia in order for this matter to be addressed on a basis that is practical, implementable, and sustainable within the long term. Thank you. The HSRC has compiled, or I don't know what the correct word is, an animation for you guys on my policy brief, and I would like to thank them for that. Tony, I think you're the person responsible for pressing play. Thank you.
Unemployment is among South Africa's greatest socio-economic challenges, and postgraduates are not exempt. Research highlights a concerning reality. Even with advanced qualifications, many graduates remain unemployed. Why? The barriers are complex. Factors such as race, institutional background, and labor market demands create an uneven playing field. For South Africa to thrive, this challenge must be confronted head-on. Over the years, policies have aimed to increase university enrollment. The National Development Plan 2030, for instance, set ambitious targets, expanding access and boosting PhD graduation rates. However, the reality is stark. Producing more graduates doesn't automatically create jobs. Without strategic alignment with industry needs, postgraduate degrees risk becoming academic credentials with no practical path forward. To unpack this issue, researchers analyzed existing policies, labor market trends, and higher education frameworks. By studying reports, progress documents, and economic indicators, a clearer picture emerges, one that reveals gaps in policy implementation and industry collaboration. Higher education institutions, HEIs, play a crucial role in preparing students for the workforce. Their mandate is clear: equip graduates with the skills needed to meet labor market demands. However, a fundamental challenge persists. How do we bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and real-world application? Employers seek experience, adaptability, and job-specific expertise. Yet, many postgraduate programs remain disconnected from these expectations. A more integrated, interdisciplinary approach is needed, one that fosters flexibility, collaboration, and career readiness. The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented uncertainty. Many students faced disruptions in their studies, while employers tightened hiring. Analyzing supply trends pre- and post-pandemic reveals crucial insights. Honors, masters, and doctoral graduates have increased over the years, but job opportunities have not kept pace. Even before the pandemic, declines in honors and master's graduates pointed to an emerging crisis. Doctoral candidates, however, showed steady growth, raising an important question. Is South Africa producing highly qualified graduates for a job market that isn't ready to absorb them? The following have been identified as possible policy recommendations for addressing postgraduate unemployment in the South African context. Developing integrated policies and partnerships with the Department of Labor, DOL, Department of Higher Education and Training, DHET, the sector skills authorities, the National Skills Fund, private sector, and other industry stakeholders to increase the uptake and intake of internships during undergraduate enrollment years. Developing policies to strengthen the resources and support systems between the DOL, DHET, and HEIs, including information sessions and workshops on career trends, mentorships, and academic advising services. Improving current monitoring and evaluating frameworks and regulations to improve the effectiveness of academic programs supplied by HEIs and DHET. Aligning postgraduate education with market trends and needs. Strategic partnerships and interventions need to strengthen collaboration between institutions of higher learning and industry analysts to ensure the development of a curriculum relevant to industry needs and adaptable to future-oriented job requirements and skills. The challenge is clear. The solutions exist. The question remains, will we take the necessary steps to ensure that South Africa's brightest minds have a place in its future?
Thank you, Lucia. I'd like to call Moloko up for the Q&A session with Dr. Lucia. If you have any questions for the two postdocs that just presented, this is the time. We have a question.
Okay, thank you very much, colleagues, that the presentations were really very enlightening, so were the outputs as well. I just want to ask one question. I believe that these policy briefs come from some research project or a consolidation of research evidence, some evidence synthesis. So there has been that research, then you wrote a policy brief, but also we see videos and animation. My question is, why so much trouble? Can't you just write one thing, disseminate, and end there?
Thank you. Allô, allô. Thank you very much. Merci. Je voudrais poser deux questions au groupe. I would like to ask two questions. Thank you. Et dans votre diapositive mentionnant plusieurs défis rencontrés par les Human Development Indicators en lien avec la recherche, j'ai remarqué que vous n'avez pas tenu compte de la question du brain drain issues, l'affût des cerveaux. Je ne sais pas ce que vous en pensez, si vous pouvez me dire un mot là-dessus. La deuxième question, n'est-il pas paradoxal, ça c'est mon point de vue d'un citoyen d'un petit pays de l'Afrique de l'Ouest qui adule l'Afrique du Sud et qui adore l'Afrique du Sud, au fait. Et n'est-il pas paradoxal de constater qu'en Afrique du Sud, il existe un sérieux problème de chômage des diplômés de 3e cycle, alors que l'Afrique du Sud est réputée sur le continent pour la promotion de la recherche, l'octroi de bourses et l'organisation de grands événements scientifiques. Merci. Please, can you
Prof, check.
translate?
Should I continue or you will interpret before?
Translation first.
Thank you. I think his first question was about taking into consideration the Human Development Index, and did you actually take into consideration the issue of brain drain and how it impacts on the research that you guys are doing? On the second one, he talks about a serious problem that he has observed in South Africa, that there are a lot of doctoral unemployed, should I say, unemployed doctoral graduates in South Africa. What is actually the problem?
Should I continue? Thank you. I have a lot of questions and comments to the two speakers, but I'll try to limit. But before I continue, these policy briefs, are they based on empirical research or what? Yes, before I continue.
Oh, yes, they are.
Okay.
I am using, sorry.
Okay.
I am using the Higher Education Information Management System, which is a quantitative database that has all the data on postgraduates, enrollment rates, employment, and all of that. So I do believe that this research is empirical, and it is also qualitative and quantitative in its nature.
Okay, thank you. By the way, colleagues, my name is Ushupe Masing from this very university that we are at. I'm a program coordinator of BA in Political Studies and a senior lecturer here. So when you speak about questions of unemployment graduate, both post and under, and you make a claim that there's a mismatch in terms of what universities produce and what the market requires, I would like to state it categorically that that is not true, and I'll tell you why. In any institution of higher learning, I've been in this space of curriculum development for quite some time, over a decade. Before any program whatsoever is approved by the Department of Higher Education as well as the Council of Higher Education, it cannot get approval without consultation from the industry. It can't. So there's no mismatch. Let's get it there. At policy level and practical level, you get approval from the Council of Higher Education and the Department of Higher Education based on approval by the industry. It's a normal rule. So what we are actually having in South Africa is not mismatch, but rather we have oversupply with little demand. You see, we do not necessarily offer qualifications that are irrelevant to the job market. That is scientifically untrue. Secondly, questions of experience, that graduates do not have experience, and issues of work integrated learning. Work integrated learning does not apply to all curriculums or to all programs. You know, I'm a social scientist in politics. Do I need work integrated learning? No. But somebody who's doing social work, somebody who's doing culinary arts and so forth, somebody who's doing engineering, those are the people that need work integrated learning. That's number two.
Sorry to disturb you.
Yes.
Can you keep your short?
Yes, I'm wrapping up. That was on the last presentation. Number two, just quickly on HDIs, because at least she's here, we'll be able to take it outside. There are several challenges that
Are we fighting?
No, we are not fighting, Doc. Don't worry. We'll speak. So the most important thing that I wanted you to note in terms of taking your research further is that one, HDIs and their inability to attract and retain staff members. There's a culture now in South Africa, I'm an academic, I know, of academics frog jumping. Why am I saying academics are frog jumping? We are not like in Department of Basic Education that a PL, one teacher will earn this much and so forth. So it's an HR issue that whenever academics move from one institution to another, institutions are competing. And you will find that within a period of 3 years, a person has frog jumped from one university to another within, let's say, it changed 4 institutions and so forth, and so goes on with it. And one other challenge that you must note is that there are those HDIs that went through what Kara Asmal then introduced as merger. Maybe majority of the young people that are here would not understand it. So merger also killed HDIs, but I have a lot. We'll continue with it after this. Thank you.
Sorry, last 2 questions. 3 questions.
Okay, I've got mine also.
Yeah, okay, we want to start with her then.
Okay, let me first start by appreciating your efforts
the two presenters. I enjoyed listening to the policy briefs and the animation and the video. I think the most important thing when we are communicating to the policymakers is to capture their attention. So clearly, you tried, you made an effort. Very quick feedback that I picked. Because of that, because you want to capture the attention, your policy briefs must be brief and concise. I didn't see much of that. I didn't see, I saw like in your example, you had rather too many policy recommendations. So I was asking myself, if I'm a policy maker, which of all those are the most critical? Would I even, if, for example, I'm resource constrained, which ones would I prioritize? So yeah, you've got to do a balancing act here. Because all of them are important, yes, but which of them are most important? Yeah. The other thing, and it is interesting listening to the last questions, they got me thinking something that I had already picked with the two of you. You are researchers and you're using your evidence to communicate. Unfortunately, for me, I struggled to see where that evidence base is coming from. Our colleague, Dr. Lucia, used what I would call a synthesis of existing evidence, which is good, it's credible evidence. And she's actually, I could see, she tried to provide that clarity. Unfortunately, and it came out clearly from the intervention behind, it's not coming out as evidence. It is evidence that can be contested. So how to go about that is to really demonstrate, even in your policy brief, that this is actually credible, rigorous research evidence that you're using. Even if it is synthesis, it has to demonstrate that rigor and credibility. And if you do that, then you capture the attention of the policymaker in a good way, not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that what you're asking is not varied. What I'm saying is that the policy briefs themselves should speak for themselves. I mean, there shouldn't be that contestation. And even if it's there, the researcher and that brief should be able to speak for itself. Finally, I liked the way that you used the video. She used the animation. These are good resources, but they also must communicate. For example, yours was very good, but you see it had issues. So before you said it to the intended audience, make sure that it is clear, that it is communicating. This other one, the animation was a brilliant idea, but at least it needed a little bit of refinement. It shouldn't come in the way. Those excellent alternative tools should not come in the way of the message that you want to communicate. Yeah, but thank you and well done.
Should I go? Okay, thank you so much. My name is Uchen from Research Hall, and I want to first of all thank our able doctors for the wonderful presentation, because I believe that for every country to move forward, there should be insightful data that is gearing towards policy, because it is the policy that shapes every nation, every society, even in a family. Policy is very important. But I just want to make a few comments and maybe a question. Both of you alluded to the issue of mismatch. You talk about mismatch, or you talk about, okay, let me come from the HGI, starting from a problem that happened right here before us, okay? If not for the presence of Prof. Achu, who is here, his question would have been lost. and you talk about the issue of the HDI and international collaboration, and we know the critical problem of Africa, which is language barrier. Okay? In looking at your work, how do you think from the policy angle, from bilateral collaboration angle, an agreement between countries, can South Africa and other African countries address this issue? Because if South Africa wants to collaborate with university or researchers from his country, there's already a language barrier. How do they address that? That's my first question. I'll keep that. That question actually just came up based on this we witness now. Okay, to Dr. Rusia, she talked about WIL, which is work integrated learning, and connecting it to what my brother said here, I will actually beg to disagree a little bit that there is a serious mismatch in Africa. Being an educator and a trainer, somebody who is really interested in bridging this gap, I notice it all the time. Yes, but the problem I think here is, yes, these things are passed through the industrial partners, but are they doing justice to it? To ensure that what is being taught actually matches what they are doing, and again, and at the rate, rapid rate they are moving. That's another thing again. Maybe because of the bottleneck bureaucracies and everything, they've already spoken to a curriculum that aligns. But before it goes through all these processes and for it to be approved, the world has moved on. How are we addressing that from the policy approval point of view? Because that's another problem here, okay? And then, from the WIL, which Dr. Lucy, and in fact, both of you connected together in all those things. When we're developing this policy brief.
Sorry, sir, I'm going to have to cut you. We're running out of time.
Okay, just let me just wrap up this one. If we are developing policy brief, isn't it much more better for us to make it an action based on models that the policymakers will just hinge on, and not just like, okay, this is research done, this is what we think we should do, but instead, it be an action, what's it called, recommendations. Let's say, for instance, Dr. Lucy, maybe you could look at Sweden. Sweden has a fantastic model when it comes to work integrated learning. They do more of industrial PhD. All their PhDs are from the industry and not from the academy. Okay? They are doing something that is direct. Then finally, in Africa, we have a lot of companies funding research. Why are they not absorbing those they funded? That's another question. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'd like to introduce the next presenter. Dr. Mpumelelo Rikhotso, please come up. Dr. Mpumelelo is a microbiologist specializing in infectious diseases, antimicrobial resistance, and public health. As a postdoctoral research fellow at the University of Venda, his work focuses on drug-resistant tuberculosis, antimicrobial resistance surveillance, and the One Health approach to zoonotic disease transmission. He has contributed to national and international research initiatives on waterborne pathogens, enteric bacteria, and neglected tropical diseases.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to see you all here, and I would like to express, my appreciation to the facilitators, Refile Mashiko and Dr. Sobane, who taught me everything about, policy brief. Thank you. So I'm going to give a policy brief on distinguishing between tuberculosis and the non-tuberculous, mycobacterium. So you should think of, the non-tuberculous mycobacterium versus the mycobacterium tuberculosis as identical twins. If you were to see twins that are identical, you wouldn't be able to distinguish between, the two. However, you could only be able to distinguish between the two through their genetic makeup. So, So we all know that tuberculosis remains a concern, not only in South Africa, but globally, And it accounts for many deaths annually, and it is difficult to manage if not handled properly. So we are seeing a rise in infections being caused by the non-tuberculous mycobacterium, which I've just mentioned that it's identical to the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And the current routine diagnostic approach that we are using cannot be able to tell the difference in terms of the genetic makeup of the non-tuberculous mycobacterium versus the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. So if someone goes to hospital and they're being diagnosed, we're using a gold standard method where they prepare a culture, they take the sputum, and they view under the microscope. And they would say, oh, this is testing positive. But only to find that, that is not actually the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. However, rather the twin of the Mycobacterium that is, present on that slide. So there is a challenge in terms of differentiation between the two strains, and this results in misdiagnosis, as well as leading to treatment failures, high treatment failures, by the way. So there's an urgent need for us to improve in terms of our routine diagnostic approach, train our healthcare workers, as well as to increase public awareness, because most people are not even aware of this. So this policy brief, seeks to integrate, the NTM management into the current, routine diagnostic protocols that are available out there. So, as I've mentioned, coming to the relevance of this policy brief, we have diagnostic limitations. Yes, of course, our government have done so much in terms of, trying to combat tuberculosis. We've made advancements towards, when you look back where we're coming from in terms of detecting the presence of tuberculosis and identifying them. But there's a problem because the advancements that we've made cannot still differentiate between the two different mycobacterial species. So this leads to high rate of treatment failures and management of TB patients. So since we've made so much advancements in terms of rolling out the gene experts, the NHLS, working in the healthcare facilities, trying to ensure that there's detection of TB much faster way, because way in the past we used to spend so much time in terms of detecting the presence of tuberculosis when someone comes to the healthcare facility. It would take up to like 4 weeks for a person to be confirmed whether they have TB or not. But nowadays, because they've rolled out the gene expert, we can tell within the first 2 hours, if one reports to the healthcare facility, we can, simply determine whether they're having TB or not. But then still, even with this advanced technology, this technology cannot distinguish between, the non-tuberculous and the Mycobacterium tuberculosis strains. So this threatens progress, and if we don't address this, we will miss out when it comes to meeting the targets set by the WTB and the World Health Organization by 2030, which seeks to eliminate TB completely. So we need to act, and we need to act now. We need to strengthen our diagnostics. We need to train our clinicians, our healthcare practitioners, because, you know, like when doing our research work, we normally engage with them, and you find that they're not even aware that, you know, there are high levels of non-tuberculous mycobacterium, and people are put on the wrong medication, and they're being told that, you know, you're not responding to the medication, only to find that they're just taking the wrong medication. So that's how serious, you know, it is. So what are some of the key issues and challenges? There's an overlap in terms of, you know, these two mycobacterial species. They cannot be differentiated. It's not easy to differentiate them unless if you're using much more advanced tools to ensure that you are dealing with the right, you know, species. So we also have the diagnostic gaps. What we're using is not enough to distinguish between the two. Inappropriate treatments. So if, you know, one is misdiagnosed, obviously you'll be given the wrong treatment, and it's not going to work. It's only going to lead to a treatment failure. And we've got systemic burden. The more people are misdiagnosed, you know, high costs. There are high costs to the healthcare facilities, and the patient outcomes are not good. So we need to enhance the capacity of diagnosis. We can, you know, employ new and much advanced technologies such as the next generation sequencing, which can be able to distinguish between, you know, these species and ensure that, you know, the management of these patients are proper. We also need to expand the culture-based practice that we're using. So currently we're using a gold standard method. So we take the sputum sample, and then we put it on a plate, grow it, and view it under a light microscope. And then we'll see some growth of the bacilli. But then just viewing the bacilli under the microscope is not enough, because the shape or the appearance of the Mycobacterium tuberculosis as well as the non-tuberculous Mycobacterium are the same. You know, hence I was saying that you look at them, take them as twins. So if you cannot differentiate through that method, it means that that method is not good enough. It needs to be revised. So we can conduct workshops on our healthcare facility workers, and also integrate, you know, this NTM management into our current TB protocols. That will be very, very, very useful. And we can also establish a national NTM monitoring system through the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, which keeps track of what is happening in terms of diseases in our country. That could also help. So there's some evidence when it comes to this occurrence of NTMs. There's a study that we did in Limpopo between the years 2023 and 2024, whereby we enrolled about 50 TB patients that were suffering from TB, that were taking TB treatment. And we found a high prevalence, you know, about 66% of patients that were thought to be suffering from tuberculosis, but only to find that they are not suffering from tuberculosis, they are suffering from the non-tuberculous Mycobacterium. And among those, you know, you had around 26% of them suffering from normal TB, and 8% suffering from drug-resistant tuberculosis. So we saw a low rate of drug resistance in the region, but there was a high level of NTM. And this meant that these people were being misdiagnosed. And these findings are in line with some of our collaborators from Stellenbosch. They also did some work in the region studying, you know, the NTMs. And they found similar results on the prevalence of NTMs. So we need to, I see Kitu saying time is running out. So we need to improve our diagnostic accuracy so that, you know, we can have a higher, you know, treatment success rate. Otherwise, you know, a lot of people are going to lose their lives. So we need the Department of Health to come on board. Well, of course, in Limpopo, we used to, then the former MEC for Health, Dr. Popira Matuba, we used to, engage a lot in terms of how the department can, work with us in terms of, ensuring that we do proper management of TB in the region. And we wanted to use, the work that we're doing there as a pilot, for the country. And we also need to establish a national NTM monitoring system, especially working closely with the NICD, because they are very, very important when it comes to this. And then focus on capacity building for healthcare workers, because I remember the first time when we had a meeting with the heads of healthcare facilities in the area, and we asked them about, this non-tuberculous mycobacterium. We asked them if they were aware if there's any circulation of the non-tuberculous mycobacteria in the region, and they said, we've never heard of that, we don't know of that, and these are people that are busy helping people every day. When people come to the healthcare facilities, coughing, sweating, showing all those symptoms, of TB, they would assume that, okay, they're suffering from TB, and then put them on treatment, and find that the patients are not responding to the treatments that are being given. And then after time, they would say, oh, you're not responding to the first-line TB drugs. We're going to give you the drug-resistant treatment. And some of the patients, were losing their lives. So healthcare workers needs to be trained so that we can ensure that, patients' lives are in good hands. So this will improve, the diagnostics and patient outcomes, which is very important. So for dissemination, I'm going to go quick. Sorry. So for dissemination, stakeholder engagement, as I've mentioned, the Department of Health, NICD, we need to train our healthcare workers. We need to publish our findings, and we also need to present our findings at conferences such as this one, and also community awareness, to say to community members that sometimes when one of your family members or a relative or friend or colleague, being given these TB treatment regimens, and you find that they're not getting any better, perhaps it would be nice, to move towards, because nowadays we're in the era of precision medicine, to move towards precision medicine and make sure that we check if whether they are not actually suffering from non-tuberculous mycobacterium. Yeah, thank you. I would also like to thank Dr. Sobane and Refilo Mashiho for the wonderful work that they've been doing with us, teaching us about, these policy briefs from scratch. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, I invite you to please write down your questions. We'll be going through to the next presentation. I'd like to introduce Dr. Nokubonga Makanya and Yolisa, who will be doing the poem aspect of her presentation. Dr. Makanya is a policy fellow at the National Research Foundation. She holds a PhD in chemical engineering, specializing in material science, renewable energy, and sustainability. Her current academic expertise span energy storage, machine learning, applications in renewable energy, and biotechnologies. She's actively engaged in research on climate change and mitigation strategies. She's committed to fostering interdisciplinary collaboration and partnering on researchers, policymakers, and industry stakeholders to drive sustainable energy transitions. Thank you.
"350 Grant" by Kirsten Dean. This is a poem that has been taken from Nokubonga's policy brief and turned into a human story. Through a crisis, they're supporting the vulnerable, the ones in pain, the hungry ones, the desperate ones. But there are always shortcomings we must address to step into resilience. Inclusivity, transparency, equality to make a new program. Robust social protection, leaving no one behind, with a relief grant from government, supplementing for poverty, the COVID-19 special grant. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good day, everyone. Am I audible? Okay, can I have my presentation put up, please? My slides, sorry. Today's policy brief is going to be very brief. I'm not going to be long. Normally when I present, I am too technical, but then with this policy dissemination, I chose to navigate other aspects of themes like wellness and social relief grants. So as Ms. Kitu has introduced me, my name is Nogubonga Makanya, and I am a DSCI NRF fellow. So let me speak my mind, because this was like a pandemic which affected like the whole world. So during the COVID-19, we were not ready, the world was not ready. And South Africa faced a lot of challenges. Sorry, this is not my, it's not my policy brief. Okay, it's fine. At that time, as a country, we faced a lot of challenges. There were no policy in place which were specifically addressing the social relief grants, which are for crisis. The only ones that we had, it was the normal ones like your child support grants and your old age pension grants. So in order for the government to respond, they had to introduce this grant to relieve the hard economies from people who lost their jobs, losses, and during the lockdown and when the government declared the national state of disaster. So the policies that were in place at that time, it was they were said right there and there. The first one was a person must apply online. It was only digital, only access, which was excluding the people who are living in rural communities and also those without internet access. And also the second, it was the limited, the barriers. Oh, sorry, can I refer? Can I refer to the first slide? Sorry, yes. And then with the administrative delays. So with the administrative delays, the beneficiaries, they faced major delays due to slow processing of the government agencies. So to address this crisis and for the next pandemic, for the country to be ready for the next, sorry, way, down? Oh, okay. So for the country to be ready for the next pandemic, we have, I have set a few sets of recommendations where a government should okay, this problem is relevant to policy discrepancy related to social welfare, public administration, and digital accessibility. And then the policy context of it, as I've mentioned before, is the legislative framework and the regulatory acts that were adopted to develop the the distribution of the funds to the beneficiaries. So we do need to change the current policies when it comes to the social relief and the wellness systems, because when we do that, we'll be addressing the gaps in the social protections and expand access for rural communities, reduces fraud and errors, and also when you link the grants to employment opportunities, you reduce the burden on budget, and also you path out a way of poverty. So what actions that needs to be taken? The government needs to implement and provide funding, and also the private sectors, the businesses needs to be involved in order through skill building and training the citizens, and also the civil society and academia, they need to be involved for their oversight and research. And then lastly, the citizens and beneficiaries, they need to be actively involved in skill building and also taking accountability. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Banga. I'd like to call up Dr. Thapelo Mofokeng. Dr. Mofokeng is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Witwatersrand and is actively involved in research and policy development within the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. His work focuses on finding new and better ways to improve energy storage by exploring innovative solutions to address critical challenges in renewable energy, batteries, nanotechnology, and electrolysis. With numerous publications in high-impact journals, Thapelo has established himself as a promising researcher in his field. His work not only advances scientific knowledge, but also aligns with the national and global priorities for technological development. Thank you, Thapelo.
All right, thank you, Kitumeti. I'm waiting for the presentation. Oh, this is the one. Can you hear me? Sorry. I'm not even sure this is my presentation. Good afternoon, colleagues. Like I was introduced, my name is Thapelo Mofokeng, and today I'm here to share my policy brief. So South Africa is known or regarded as one of the mineral powerhouses in the continent and globally. We are blessed with some of the critical minerals, especially nowadays in the age or era of portable electronic devices and renewable energy. Yet, about 80% of our energy still comes from fossil fuel-based energy sources like coal. And we know the disadvantages of coal, that it's old and also it causes air pollution and also harm the environment. So it's like having the ingredients to make a feast, but yet you still choose to use a paraffin stove to cook. So besides the implications of fossil fuel-based energy as a major source in our energy generation, we also have a problem with our utility power station, our utility company, which is Eskom. We know the issues about Eskom in terms of the mismatch between the demand and the supply, and also some of the decommissioning of their plants due to infrastructure and lack of maintenance. So this issue of load shedding, we know what it leads to, business suffering, economical insecurities, and so on. And then the industries that we check that are still using these fossil fuel-based energy sources to generate or run their plants, they face a high carbon tax. And that can threaten their overall revenues and also some of the employment security. So I have to accept that in the past 10 to 15 years, we've moved towards renewable energy, where we use the sun and the wind as a source of energy. So we know that solar and wind energy, they are very good, they are abundant, and they are cheap. However, they are intermittent in nature. So the unfortunate part is that we cannot shine the sunshine when we want or blow wind wherever we want, especially at peak, high energy peak demand. So to overcome that, renewable energy sources like solar and wind, they need to be coupled with energy storage devices. And that's where I come in here, using battery technology. So batteries can make this renewable energy more sustainable and dependable. So, sorry about that. So based on our policies, we have great policies in South Africa, and especially in terms of renewable energy. If you look at the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan, it favors the adoption of renewable energy as one of the electricity generating technologies. However, my issue is that it focuses its battery storage on lithium-ion batteries. They are the state of the art. Those are the batteries we have in our phones and laptops. However, lithium resources are depleting over the world, and the cost of lithium is going high. So the document itself, it neglects some of the new technologies like zinc-ion batteries, which is where my research focus is and where I think there's a mismatch in terms of policy alignment. Other documents like mineral beneficiation strategy, they focus or speaks a lot about beneficiating our minerals in the country. Yet, the SRM document speaks about exporting batteries, which I believe we have the capabilities of starting to manufacture batteries in-house. So the type of batteries I speak about, or I focus my work on, is zinc-ion batteries. They are similar to lithium-ion batteries in terms of performance and how they work. But the most important thing is the minerals that are involved in making the components of these batteries. So the critical minerals are zinc and manganese. And if you check, globally we have about 80% manganese reserves. If you look at the yellow part here in the map, it shows some of the mine and the deposit of manganese. And if you come specifically to Mpumalanga here, there's a company called Mpumalanga Mineral Core, which plays a role in manganese battery projects. So if we can create batteries within house, manufacture, we will be able to create jobs and improve our economy instead of focusing on importing already made expensive batteries. This also speaks the same to national development, which calls for local manufacturing and creating jobs. So I think in terms of policy, these three documents are good, but there's a mismatch or misalignment. And if we can focus on our mineral beneficiation strategies, we can at least make them to speak the same thing. So what are my policy proposal solutions? SRM is a live document, so it can be amended every time. So I think policy decision makers, they need to amend the document and include technologies like zinc-ion batteries as one of the top priorities. And then this will help in terms of speaking to mineral beneficiation, where we can beneficiate these natural resources that we have. And also government agencies and private sector, they have to start funding and piloting projects regarding aiming at zinc-ion batteries. We have different government agencies like DSTI, DITC, and SANIDI, which focus on energy and energy storage related projects. So as evidence supporting this technology over others, you can see this table shows a performance comparison of different batteries, including lithium ones, sodium, lead acid, which we use in our cars, and some other types. So the most important thing about a battery is that it needs to be safe, cheap, and also recyclable. So if you speak to circular economy. And we see that compared to lithium-ion batteries, which are below here, zinc ion is highly safe, it's highly recyclable. And in terms of other performance metrics, it matches the current state of the art, which are lithium-ion batteries. And then in terms of cost of manufacturing or packaging, you can see that it's relatively low compared to these other types of batteries, including lithium-ion based. And also all the components that make the battery, they are relatively cheap as compared to lithium-ion batteries. This is because it uses abundant cheap materials, and that God blessed us in South Africa with. So we need to take advantage of them. So how do we go about implementing or trying to implement or help the government? I've designed a small roadmap here. So the first step, in a short term, 1 to 5 years, we can start by doing robust R&D to overcome some of the issues regarding zinc-ion batteries. We can also start initiating pilot projects in high renewable energy regions like Northern Cape. And then on the medium term, department agencies like the DTIC can establish local manufacturing, and also research councils can provide the technical support needed to upscale this technology. In the long term, also government agencies and the private sector can start to integrate these batteries, because in terms of performance, they can work. they are comparable to the state-of-the-art lithium ion batteries. At the end, they are very way cheaper than the lithium-ion batteries. And also private sector can help build EV charging station, because I think that's where the future is going. Electric vehicles are inevitable, I guess. So in terms of my dissemination plan, this is how I plan to disseminate. My target audience, obviously, are policymakers, which are mostly government agencies and private sector, industry leaders, and energy researchers. Channels to go about it is through publications, presentation in policy forum like this ones, government white papers, academic conferences, and industry roundtables. So thank you. I would like to thank these following agencies, for the invite, the funding, and the opportunity to present this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thapelo. I'd like to call up Dr. Putin Mwepe, the last presenter for the day. Dr. Mwepe is a semiconductor physicist who completed his studies at the University of Pretoria. He has lectured various first-year and honors physics modules at different universities. He's currently a postdoc at the DSTI in the Space and Science Technology Chief Directorate. He has published a number of papers in peer-reviewed journals and presented his work at various national and international conferences. He has been involved as a judge at the ESCOM Expo International Fair with a view of contributing towards the development of young learners in the field of science. Thank you, Puti. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Itu, for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In the interest of time, I'll be very short and straight to the point. Okay, so yeah, so let me just again just thank the NRF and the HSRC for creating this platform for us to come and give or at least go through this program, as well as the DSTI, Department of Science, Technology, and Department of Science, Technology and Innovation for the opportunity, for hosting some of us there. Okay, so enabling Africa's inclusive and sustainable development. Okay, I think this is the theme of this conference, and so in order for us then to achieve this goal, we need to have the kind of supporting infrastructure and enabling tools for us to do that in the various fields that are relevant for us to have. So, okay, I don't think the slides are up yet, but so the, okay, so the, okay, so some of the fields which have been mentioned are fields relating to, for example, agriculture, climate change, safety and security, and so on. In order for us then to execute those, as I've said, we will need tools which we can use in order for us to make sure that those are ultimately achieved. And so today then I just want to talk about, within the South African perspective, and also maybe reaching out continentally and globally, is just enhancing the South African space sector through a dedicated online portal. Okay. So I've already spoken about the various applications in which we can use, we can have, where we can use this, the space industry So we can use it in things like rural development and urban planning. We've already spoken about climate change, disaster monitoring and relief, and so on. And so then having all of that, then we can just speak about a tool or a solution to do that, but we can just lay a foundation about how that can be achieved. So in South Africa, we have what is called the Space Affairs Act, and basically that regulates the space affairs in our country. And within that, we also have the National Space Policy. And the policy, the number of objectives, two of which would be to improve the coordination of various role players so that we minimize the duplication of resources, and also to create a coherent network which can be able to be used to streamline space sector applications. And also, one of the other objectives is to promote just the awareness of the space sector. And so I basically then want to just hop on those two objectives. So I've spoken about the Space Affairs Act. So the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition basically sets the regulation and policy in terms of the space sector, and the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, DSTI, is the implementing department of this act. And so there are various role players that are involved in the space sector. So different departments, for example, we have departments, I've spoken about the DSTI and the DTIC, but we also have, for example, the Department of Communication and Digital Technology, which gives out licenses. So we've seen recently talks about the Starlink, which wants to offer communication within South Africa. So that is one place in which, one department that deals with space. And so there are a whole lot of related institutions and other research institutions, funding institutions, the private sector and so on, who are involved in this, in the space sector. So what I'm proposing is that we can, we produce an online portal which basically would act to supplement this, the objectives of the Space Affairs Act. And so here we would have different stakeholders who are able to contribute to this portal, where we would have different resources which are put on the portal, things like events that we might have, also information regarding educational information, where people, the general public and learners and even scholars can engage on, as well as have things like real-time data and so on, which people would be able to access. So the idea would then be that in terms of having this portal, we would discuss with various stakeholders and make sure that we engage them in terms of their inputs into it, and also have a updates and feedback that we would regularly have in order for us to keep afloat and abreast of what is actually happening within the sector. And so this would then, as I've said, the space portal would then be a place where there would be different linkages to all these different departments and stakeholders. And so, yeah, so that is what we were thinking about. So then in this case, the DSTI would be the lead department in this, where it would galvanize and just coordinate the different departments and stakeholders. And so we'd get different people and these stakeholders to contribute to this portal. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much, Pruti. The floor is open for questions. We'll be starting this side. 3 questions. We're cognizant of time. Who's next?
Hello? Yeah. Let me salute the presenters, the way they provided the information to us. In short, I say thank you very much. I want to put it clear in this house that researchers are doing everything in their power to provide the solutions to the governments in Africa as a whole, where governments are black people. The problem is this: if you depend on somebody to be funded so that you can assist your people, it will be impossible for you to do that, because you get something from somebody, that particular person give you whatever in order to make sure that you depend on him or her. It will be impossible for you to serve your people. Job opportunities are there in Africa, but our governments denied us the job opportunities. Might be South Africa, wherever, if you go up that side, you go down to Swaziland, you get the same thing. Mozambique, Zimbabwe, everything, all of them go up. The only thing they are powerful in is to engage in violence, killing themselves. They are good in that part. So I want to repeat this. The problem is with our governments. They denied us opportunities. So researchers do everything in their power, but no one is prepared to listen to them. If they listen to you, it will mean that that thing is not so, or is not involved in the benefits they want to get. Then they will listen to you. But once you touch something that will interfere with their benefits, definitely they will never listen to you. And the worst part, even our society also, the majority of them is corrupt. That's another issue. So I stand up in order to salute the presenters. That was my intention. And the second one is to inform the presenters that our problem is with the government. They don't want to assist us at all, but they want to benefit as individuals, put something in their pockets, because somebody is using them to oppress us. So that's the problem we're having. if we can come up with something that which we can do in order for us to be dependent economically, I'll be very proud. But currently, we are dependent. We depend on somebody, then it's impossible for us to come out of this conundrum. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Most of the times, I do not feel comfortable if I start feeling like I'm out of place. So I'm only saying this because I'm not sure if I missed the memo. But this was supposed to be like a training session and also learn more from the presentations done by our fellow postdoctoral fellows. So going to my comments, I just have comments, not questions to be exact. So I think I'll start first by referring back to the presentation that was done by Dr. Pauline in the morning. The way she presented the structure with the other prof, you know, there was a letter that was showing there how we can possibly write a policy review. The one with a lot of details and the one that was simplified. You know, I can still vividly recall the presentation that she gave, which of course I believe the purpose of this moment now, because if, you know, I was looking around since the past presenters, from the two, which were very complex, and the last three, they were coming down now, yeah. Even I think the one that was more, I could comprehend more, is the presentation by Dr. Tapel, you know. I was just noting them down and checking and looking around at my fellow young researchers here, the doctoral fellows to be exact, because, you know, most of the time you don't need to be out of place, yeah. We need to also to interact, because I want to believe this was supposed to be a training for us to be interactive with the communication from the presenters. Because like from the past presenters, the first two, it's like they completely forgot about their audience, and they were using very complex way of presenting their work. Of course, they were not interactive. I don't remember any raising a hand there, but I could only see the seasoned scholars interacting. Then I was like, okay, maybe I should sit back. So this is very important because I think we came here for the same purpose, and it's always impressive if you come to the conference and when you come back, you know, there's something that you benefited from that. So I think from the comments, it's very unfortunate that the MC now started now, you know, she decided to cut the comments. So now I was kind of jotting them down, so I'm sorry, but I'll just try to be quick. So I think, okay, I talked about the use of, so I think the major thing that from the past experience or exposure that I got between a scientific paper and a policy brief, of course, what I was jotting down here is that now I know from a scientific paper, I'll just note two differences that would also maybe as a takeaway for those people who presented before. Because from the general view now, from a scientific paper, which is of course is what we'll be mostly presenting on tomorrow, we know we can expect at least 10 pages of a scientific paper, but now when you come to the policy brief, now we expect 2 or maybe to 4 pages. Then when it's a presentation, it's even less. Because if I have now a paper of 10 pages or a paper of 20 pages, in the terms of presentation, it means I'll have few pages. So what I saw there's a presentation that I liked. I don't know whose presentation was us, but it kept popping up there as like a poster. So I don't recall well, but then it was very specific and very coherent and very concise. So I think besides missing the point, I think from what I wanted to drive home here was that I was expecting to learn from whatever that was said, maybe taking it from Dr. Pauline and the prof presentation in the morning, try to keep us on the same wavelength and on how maybe we can approach what is a policy brief. Then using your presentations as example, now try to now make us now be at par, because I want to believe that from here then, this is what I want to leave this place knowing that, okay, I was taught how to, from the scratch, like they were taught, because everyone kept referencing that, thank you for all the, teaching us how to construct the policy brief from the scratch, yeah. So I was also expecting the same, so it's very unfortunate that, I had to pick it in between, But then all the presentations were impressive. I'd like to cut it short, thank you.
Okay. All right. My name is Selela Mwakalila from University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. So I have two questions, and I'm not too far away from the colleagues who have already stated. So for me now, to get a more understanding from what the previous colleague had said, from now the ground level, what are the key features that make a policy brief effective in conveying the complex scientific information to policymakers? That's the first question. I want you to tell us what are the key features for to make a policy brief effective. But also another question, I think so, it is relating to, from the colleague that has asked on the previous session, given the diversity of political and social context, and he said that if you want maybe to collaborate with other countries, there are language barriers, so how do you address that? But also in the issue of diversity of political system, different social contexts, how do you tailor the policy brief to different countries or political system? Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make one general comment, and I want to ride on to what that gentleman alluded to. You have obviously done very quality research, and there is rigor, and there's no doubt that what you have come up with is of relevance. But going back to what we were talking about in the morning, we need to draw a distinction between developing evidence for policy and developing evidence for knowledge production and informing practice. What we have seen in these last presentations, in my view, you are sharing your research findings. You've not defined really in your mind whether you're sharing this to policy makers. What I see is that you're sharing your wonderful findings. Some would be very appropriate for the field in which you work in. Like the person was making presentation on, this I think is Tapero. Whatever you came up with would be very useful for the industry round tables. I think you did mention that, but clearly a policymaker would not understand even the jargon that you're using. I struggled to follow. So I'm thinking if there's a policymaker listening to that, would they really find it relevant to their work? But industrial partners would obviously find a lot of relevance to that. So the point we were trying to make in the morning is if you're communicating to the policy landscape, be very clear that this is your audience, and then communicate in a very simple, concise, easy to understand. Then secondly, you're not sharing your findings. you sharing your policy recommendations. What do you want them to act upon when they are either formulating the policies, reviewing policies, but not findings to inform either your fellow, communities, or just to generate knowledge, to contribute to knowledge. So those are comments that I have seen cutting across. You've done wonderful work, but we want to encourage you now to move to the next level of policy briefs. They are meant to be brief and to communicate to the policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to add to what Dr. Pauline said and respond to the question from Dar es Salaam. I wish we had been able to see the 3-minute thesis. I think it would have helped. Maybe at some point we can still show it for people to know how to translate complex scientific concepts to simple ideas that can be assimilated by non-experts. I think that would be very helpful. So for me, what works for effective policy brief will be less of texts and more on visualization, either in terms of images or, but not also graphs. Some graphs or reporting some econometrics analysis that is complicated. When you go to many offices of really high level or important decision makers, you see many policy briefs on the side and you ask them, oh, yeah, they brought it. I don't know what is in it. So I think more of visualization that is really attractive and viewer-friendly, and less of texts. And most importantly, we also need to know that policy briefs are tools. We have to be mindful of the fact that sometimes the power of policy brief is exaggerated. So policy brief is a tool. You still need to use it in a very strategic way for you to get the kind of results that you want. But a policy brief that is more of on the side of visuals will be better than that one that has to do with a lot of text. Thank you.
We have one online question. Hi, if you're still online, if you're able to speak, please read out your question for us.
Mustafa, just unmute yourself.
Okay, so I think we'll move on to the closing remarks.
Mustafa?
Yeah, good afternoon to you all. I'm happy this morning. I think this session is very educative and informative, other than you being centered in us watching online, because we'll be so interested to give our inputs during the previous sessions since this morning. But I think you guys only focus on the physical attendees. But nevertheless, we appreciate a lot because we learn and the discussions are very practical as well. So I want to appreciate you all for your wonderful contributions. Yeah. That's the only thing I want to see. Because I was not ready to ask questions either.
All right, thank you so much. I'd like to call upon Refile to announce the next steps for the DSTI NRF Policy Fellowship Program. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed our session.
Hello? Okay. So, yeah, time is not on our side. And I see that there are so many questions and so many things to share. And I'm hoping in the next couple of days we'll be able to unpack some of the things that came out of this session. And with the comments that we received on some of the policy briefs, I must say that this is an ongoing engagement and activity that the that the NRF and the HSRC is undertaking. So there will be sessions where we refine the briefs, and they will continue to present them to the relevant stakeholders. So I just want to thank our postdocs for those presentations and those engaging formats of presenting their policy briefs. So from my side, just to quickly announce, or rather share, what we have planned for the next phase of the Policy Fellowship Program. So as you know, when we piloted it, it was for a year, starting in 2024. We had somewhat of a phased approach where we took in some of the postdocs. I think we started with 14 fellows, but now we're sitting at 23, placed at the DSTI, the DTIC, the NRF, and so forth. So in the next phase of the program, there will be an aspect of internationalization where there will be mobility opportunities for the postdocs to get exposure at other institutions. And I think we look forward to working with Dr. Pauline in PASCA, see how we can expose our fellows to these opportunities and capacitate them even further on policy-making processes and writing. And some of the modalities that we are currently exploring is to have the fellowship as a full-time opportunity. As you may know, we currently have part-time and full-time fellows. And following some engagements with the DSTI, we decided maybe it would be best for us to have this as a full-time opportunity to fully have our fellows engaging in these processes and learning even further. We fortunately received blessings from the DSTI program 4. I see Mampe is here. Hi, Mampe, from the DSTI. And thank you for joining our session. We received blessings from program, is it program 4 or 5? Yeah, Imran 4, program 4, to continue and expand this program for the next 1 to 2 years, to fully grasp what is it that we can do with our fellows and link them with policymakers and bridge that gap, that evidence for policy gap that continues to exist. So in terms of how the process will run is through application. If you recall, if you're part of the pilot phase, what we did was a close call to universities, requesting them to submit recommendations and so forth, and going through interviews. But because we have taken some key learnings from the pilot phase, we have seen that it was very necessary for us to have it run through the normal channels of the NRF. And this will allow us to basically streamline the processes and ensure that we are in line with the policy at the NRF in terms of placing our fellows. So yeah, there's a lot of activities that will be taking place in terms of setting up everything. And we're hoping to have a close call maybe launched in, I don't know, where's Michael? Michael will be leading some of the aspects of the program. So we're hoping to launch, or maybe not launch, but to release a call for this in the next couple of months, perhaps in April or May 2025. So please be on the lookout. If you found this quite helpful and a great opportunity to learn policy areas and so forth, I encourage you to please explore and apply for that opportunity when it becomes available. So I think that's it from my side. We will continue to have these discussions, and we will continue to work with the HSRC as well as other key stakeholders in making this a success. And once again, I want to thank hey, I always call them my postdocs because I'm so close to them. But I want to thank the DSTI NRF postdocs for walking this journey with us and allowing us to actually, trial, see what works and what doesn't work for the past year and ongoing. But yeah, I think for now, I will hand over to my bestie, Dr. Koni Sobane, to close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Our postdocs know me for always talking nonsense. Today, I'm not talking nonsense. I'm proud of you. I want to congratulate you all. For those that don't know, for all of them, this was their very first attempt at a policy brief, and their very first attempt at presenting one and even presenting it with some other accompanying outputs in most cases. And you did a very great job. You deserve a round of applause. Dr. Pauline and your colleagues, thank you very much for your inputs, and I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a longer conversation, of a collaboration on this kind of work in order to help our emerging scholars, because this is a very important part of being a scholar, not just to generate knowledge and inform scholarship, but to also inform policy and also to inform programs to some extent. And your insights and contributions throughout the day and throughout the presentations are very much appreciated. I want to thank all the members of the audience and my besties, the NRF. We have a very formidable team at the NRF that is really very easy to work with. I'm really hoping that we are laying down the foundation through this postdoc program, and that a vision that I had for a very long time of my working on policy briefs since 2012, that something irks me about us producing so much research that gathers dust just because it could not be translated otherwise in the libraries, and it could not be turned into policies and programs. It looks like the universe is hearing me this time around. If we are able to sit here as such a large group, I am really grateful. So thank you very much, colleagues. We really appreciate, and we're still open for engagement, although the session is closing throughout the course of the conference. When you see one of us and you have more inputs to make, you are very much allowed to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I think that was a great session this afternoon. So now, as we can see from the time, we have to close the day's program. And without wasting time, I'm going to invite Professor Chekachu to come and give us, to close the program of the day from the sessions in the morning, so that we can, I know that we need to travel back to town, to our hotel, using a transport. So the time we will announce after Prof. Check has said. Prof, wrap it up.
Thank you, Dr. Managa. Colleagues, good afternoon again. I think it has really been an interesting and engaging day. I really enjoyed myself. I was just sitting there and listening. I've never really been this concentrated in a conference for a very long time. And I think I really wish to thank my two colleagues here, partners in research in Africa, Prof. Fatai and Dr. Pauline, for actually setting the scene for the day. And again, my colleague, Dr. Suban Rifiwe and postdoc, this has really been an interesting day. And I think one of the issues, because remember, we keep saying that if you really want your work to actually get into the policy implementers, you must target ministers. But this morning, we learned from Prof. Fatai that you actually need to target the middle management in the ministry, because they are the ones that craft those policies. The minister only go through them, possibly in a plane, So I guess it's a new strategy for us, Prof, that we really need to start targeting some of the middle management colleagues in government departments so that we can actually get our policy across. I was also very impressed with the conversation between Uche and Dr. Oshupeng Masing. If you a student of African history, you realize that most of the social science policies on the African continent were crafted as a result of this kind of conversation. If you look at, or if you read some of the articles that were written in the 70s, it was about Ali Mazrui coming up with a particular idea, and Wole Soyinka countering it on the other side, Chinua Achebe, and so on and so forth. And some of those particular conversations actually led to some very important policy direction that the continent, especially in the social science, has actually followed since then. Prof and other colleagues, the CODESTRIA, the Council for the Development of Social Science in Africa, was developed as a result of this kind of conversation, just so that colleagues on the continent in social science can actually moderate their thinking in a way in which it benefits the continent. And I want to really encourage colleagues that by engaging or by countering an argument from another colleague, it's not like you hate that person. It's actually a very healthy way of developing the social sciences or sciences as a whole. And I really encourage colleagues to actually engage in those kind of conversations. Again, as I was listening again this morning, sometime in 2019, we were invited by the APRM. I know you know the APRM, that's the Africa Peer Review Mechanism, to sit as an expert on the Africa Governance School, or the establishment of African Governance School. And one of the critical issues that the panel was grappling with was, as the African Union, to make the governance process on the continent accessible to all. And some of the key issues that, but again, the most important aspect of that particular conversation and in the APRM was more how do we inculcate a culture of respect for constituted bodies on the continent and ensure that critical institutions such as the Pan-African Parliament, the Africa Peace and Security Architecture become very strong instruments for the development of the continent. Our panel reasoned that it will be a challenging task to actually implement some of these, policy issues. And some of the three issues that we envisaged was that there are actually poor monitoring and evaluation strategies on the continent of several African Union protocols. More importantly, there's weak climate change mitigation strategies on the continent, corruption, poverty, and so on and so forth. We also realized that there was this issue of cutthroat competition from other African countries, African Union countries, as it relates to the economy, markets, you know, the debate between South Africa and Nigeria, who is a superpower and stuff like that on the African continent, the African rising concepts and non-competitive of African economies. So those are some of the issues that we came across. But I'm really happy that in some of the conversations that we've had today, you realize that we've started crystallizing some of this particular conversation, especially into some of the work that we are doing. And I want to believe that with some of the conversation that we've had, especially from Prof. Atai and from Dr. Pauline, we will be able to start addressing some of these critical issues that that the APRM, or that this particular expert panel actually identified. Another fundamental challenge that we identified as well was the role of global powers. I think we mentioned that this morning, in shifting continental efforts to integrate, for Africa to integrate the global value chain system effectively. And I want to, as I said, today we have many forums on that deals with Africa. You know, we have, we mainly have the China-Africa, FOCAC, France-Africa Summit, Germany-Africa Summit, US-Africa, and so on and so forth. But we still have the G20 again that is coming to the continent, and the G20 and Africa. So what did they discuss in all these forums that we cannot discuss even as African, even at the African Union? So let me illustrate some of the dysfunctionality of some of these discussions. That in 2007, President Sarkozy, on visiting Dakar at the Cheikh Anta Diop University, he stated that, in open quotes, the tragedy of Africa is that the African has not fully entered into history. They have never really launched themselves into the future. That was at Cheikh Anta Diop University in July 2007. Again, in 2009, with regards to the development of the African continent, and during President Barack Obama's first visit on the continent in Ghana, he stated in the Ghanaian parliament in that the 21st century will be shaped by what happens not just in Rome, Moscow, Washington, but by what happens in Accra as well. So I want to believe that from these two different perspectives, from global, from world, from Western leaders, the key, therefore, is that we really don't have all the West can talk on behalf of Africa. They can't. Macron is talking about how Africa, the African man has not even started thinking about tomorrow. On the other hand, Barack Obama is saying that the world will not go anywhere without Africa. So the key, therefore, is not whether we have actually, or we contemplate whether Sarkozy, what Sarkozy said, or, you know, and so on, but rather we should seize the moment, as President Obama emphasized in 2009, and make meaningful changes in our society. And I guess this particular workshop today is all about that. Let's seize the moment and make meaningful changes or policy recommendation in our society. The critical question is, how do we seize the moment then? How do we make meaningful societal changes? How do we go about strengthening governance institutions in the continent? How do we ensure that governance processes in the African Union are strengthened and that sub-regional organizations play critical roles in fostering integration and promoting mutual respect of our institutions to implement the continental free trade? I think President Mbeki in 1996 set the tone when he declared that at the South African Parliament to say, today I feel proud to be an African. And for me, I think we should all be proud to be African, and that this policy workshop actually gives us the necessary tools for us to prefer those policies that will actually leap us into the next century. The pride, you know, I conclude here to say the pride of being an African emanates from the knowledge that despite centuries of slavery, slave trade, colonialism, and apartheid, we as a people were still able to come together and decolonize the continent. So we can as well still come together and put together policies that will take us to the next level. I was also very impressed when I looked at the map of Africa and that our colleagues, Dr. Managa actually, and colleagues at the HSRC put together. You see the fertile black soil and the seed that is germinating. Perhaps what we've actually done today is to plant that seed, and that seed is all of you seated here. And that tomorrow, the baobab tree that you see in Limpopo was just like this as well. And that some 200 years from today, all the ideas that you put together will be the baobabs of Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Just the announcement, the transport back to hotel is going to leave at 5:30. So I think by the 5:30, then we will go there by the picking. So the transport will be there. But I think there will be other groups that will go before that because there are 2 cars that are already here. So, but the one from the hotel will be ready at 5:30. But if you are ready, then you can start going to that side at the picking, and then we will we'll go. All right, thank you so much.